Okay, here we are. Yeah. During the next 90 minutes, there's going to be a cloud come over the sun, and it's going to be 70 degrees in here. All right, good. Well, I'm Joel, glad to visit with you, and on a subject that's really near and dear to my heart, because I think we live in a time in our culture where we're losing our young people. Talk to any school psychologist today. They've never seen such depression, suicide attempts, different things. And I'm a big believer that a lot of the solution is in working together as a family with meaningful tasks, so that as a child grows up, they've actually accomplished something. And too often today, I think children grow up and reach teenage years, and they've never actually accomplished anything meaningful, except becoming the top points getter in Angry Birds or playing the latest video game in the basement. And no amount of patting on the head saying you're a good boy, you're a good girl, makes up for the self-worth and affirmation that comes from actually successfully completing a meaningful task. And so with that in mind, I've got what I call my 10 commandments for working with your kids so they'll want to work with you. And let's just jump right into it, and then we'll save time for questions at the end. The first one is to integrate them into every aspect of your life. This is not a time to be afraid. Now, we don't want to tell the kids, go stick your fingers in the light socket and see if it's working. You know, we don't want to, or go play in the middle of the street, and see if the cars if the brakes will work. But essentially, we're looking at integrating into every aspect of life. I mean, think about this. When Bill Cody was 12 and 13 years old, he rode for the Pony Express. At 12 years old. I think that we have done a tremendous disservice to our young people in this country with child labor laws that deny them the chance to incorporate into the adult world. I ran into a lady not long ago, and she talked about when she was growing up in Seattle, when the apples were coming in, and she said the apple orchards would rent the school buses for the summer. And if you wanted spending money, and you had to be so tall, they wouldn't take you. So you had to step up against the line, and you had to be this tall. But if you were that tall, you could watch the schedule and get on the school bus, go out to the apple orchard, pick all day, and they would give you cash at the end of the day. And that's how you went to the movies, or you bought your parents a gift, or you had some spending money or whatever, and you were integrated into the adult world. Imagine trying to do that today. As the Virginia Slims commercial says, we've come a long way, baby. And I would suggest that created a youth culture of can-do spirit, of understanding the worth of work and their own personal worthwhileness, their own confirmation, affirmation. So we never baby talk to our kids. We use big words. One of my favorites was Daniel. How many of you have heard Daniel in the other presentation that Daniel did? Yeah, isn't he great? So when he was about 8, we always used regular, grammar, regular language. We didn't just baby talk with the kids. And I remember very well one Thanksgiving dinner, he pushed us away from the table. So their vocabulary was bigger than their understanding. And he said, I think I over-indulged. But this is good stuff to actually incorporate. Kids understand make work. They understand make work, and so incorporating them. Don't shelter and overprotect. Hovered over kids make helicopter adults that never leave home when they're 25 and still in the basement. Why? Because they never launched, because we got hovering over parents that never let them, climb a tree. Oh, they might fall out and break their arm, and don't let them do things. We always like to ask advice. Ask advice. People would accuse me of talking to my kids as if I valued their opinion. I said, well, it's because I do. Because they haven't always done it this way before. So they've got fresh perspectives about all sorts of things that I'm in a routine and I'm just doing it, in a routine. And they come along and ask, why are you doing it this way? Well, it's fresh. They haven't always done it this way. So it's good. So integration into every aspect of life. We homeschooled our kids. We started homeschooling when truancy officers were still coming to your house and taking your children out of your home, putting them in foster care, and because you were such social aberrants that you would homeschool. That's when we started. So you pulled the drapes, you didn't ask, you didn't tell, you basically went underground. And what we found was that integration was paramount. We didn't separate. We didn't say, well, this is school, this is not school. You're learning all the time, and so in the kitchen, fractions, half a cup, quarter cup, half a teaspoon, third of a teaspoon. You learn fractions in the kitchen, okay? So, are you in school? Yeah, you're in school. You're just in life. We're just doing life, and the kids are doing life with us. I remember very well, Teresa and I got a conservation award when Daniel was about 8 or 9. He was just little, and we had to go away for 2 days. I set up cross fences for the cow moves. We had about 100 cows at the time, and left him in charge of the farm. They spent the night with my mom, Grandma. But he went out, and every day we were gone, he moved the cows, 100 head at 8, and moved the cows. And you know what that does to the self-esteem of an 8-year-old, to be able to go out and call and watch 100 cows move, to your. That's pretty cool stuff. So integration. Number two, a love to work. Just instill a love to work. How do we do this? Well, we turn it into a game. So, imagine that you need to weed the green beans, and you can say, go out and weed the green beans, or you can turn it into a game and put a little pink survey ribbon here and here, starting point, finishing point, rows side by side, or half a bed, or whatever, how you want to designate it, and you say, tell you what, you start at your ribbon, I'll start at mine, and whoever finishes first, whoever finishes first wins. And kids love competition. We're hardwired for competition, right? We love competition, and so that's how we encourage activity. One of the most important things you'll hear in this little presentation is what we want is to make all of our projects and our expectations, our activities, task-oriented, not time-oriented. This is profound. Hang with me. How many of you ever get nervous twitches remembering, go practice the piano for 30 minutes? Yeah, it gets crazy, okay? Or go pull weeds for 30 minutes. Or go, time-oriented things. Have so many parents come up to me, my kids dawdle. I say, get ready for bed, and they dawdle. I ask them to do something, and they dawdle. How do you get done with dawdling? You do it by always assigning activities or doing activities in terms of time, in terms of task, of completed task, not time. That way, you incentivize completion. Get her done. Go weed the green beans. I don't know why I'm stuck on green beans, but I'm stuck on green beans. Go read the green beans from here to there. When you get done, we'll read a Dr. Seuss story. We'll have an ice cream cone. I'll give you a quarter. Whatever the reward is, that's fine. Now, it has to be done to, to certain specifications. That's true. But the point is that when a child sees a clear completion destination and is incentivized with a reward at the end of it, guess what that encourages them to do? Get with it. They're not going to dawdle. And by the way, if they figure out how to do it really, really fast, the reward is not, well, you finished that so fast we can do some more. No. That's not the way to reward diligence, okay, and efficiency. What we want to do is reward that completion, that efficiency, so that it's task-oriented and not time-oriented. I remember one of my proudest moments as a dad was our daughter Rachel. At 14, she and some little friends had started a little newsletter and a little club called the Ladybug Club, and they did a little newsletter. Of course, their parents were their subscribers, and came along to Thanksgiving one year, and they wanted to do essays. They each had to submit essays on what they're thankful for, and our daughter Rachel, her essay was titled "I'm Thankful for Work." Because think of what a chaos the world would be in if it weren't for work. Now that's called loving work, okay? When you realize that sacred, important work is valuable. Another one of my favorites was Daniel. A neighbor family moved in nearby. So, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of the story. So, incorporating kids into every aspect. I mean, when Daniel was in diapers, we'd go out and we'd work together, and so one of the ways that I incentivized myself to get her done was like, okay, I'm out digging post holes, and back in those days we didn't have a post pounder. It was all by hand, and I'm out there, and so I'd pace myself and say, I'm not going to stop and get a drink of water until I finish 2 post holes. That way you incentivize yourself. Let's get this done, get these 2 posts in, then I can get a drink of water. So you know how little kids are. Of course, Daniel's going with me. He's in his diapers, and I've got his diaper bag, and he's got his little Tonka trucks, and little toys, and so he's down in the dirt, playing around, and he didn't want to come to this talk just now, just so you know. You can talk to him later about it. Anyway, he's there down on the ground, and you know how little kids are. I'm thirsty, Daddy. I'm thirsty, right? They get to whine a little bit. Say, no, Daniel, we're not going to stop and get a drink until I finish this second post hole. So that's just the way we grew up, or I kind of taught him that. So now he's 8 or 9. A neighbor family moves in. They have a son about the same age as Daniel. Well, what do 8 or 9-year-old boys want to do? They want to go out and build a fort, right? We got to build a fort. So my wife and the other boy's mother got together and made a play date. All right, they're gonna build this fort, and the boys decided they would build it over at the other boy's house, not at ours. So at the appointed time, whatever, 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever, Daniel goes over to the neighbor's house, and he and the neighbor boy, they start building this fort. About an hour and a half later, the neighbor's mom calls. She says, "What is it with your son? He won't let my boy have a drink of water until they finish the first wall." Isn't that great? They say way more is caught than taught. And there's a lot of truth to that, okay? And so as we make our activities task-oriented with an incentive at the end, then that moves them to an aggressive, exciting, enthusiastic work ethic, makes them love to work because there's something at the end, even if it's something as simple as a drink of water. So you discipline for reward by accomplishment. Nobody's entitled to anything, and you don't get reward until you've actually accomplished something. This is critical. Love to work. Number three, give them some freedom. Let them pursue their own projects. Now, we certainly, again, we don't want to just throw them out in the street, but we need to let them find what they enjoy doing, to preserve the passion for dreams and exploration. They actually are interested in doing things. And I remember very well the very early, homeschooling type material that Teresa and I began reading. It said the biggest problem in this is trusting your kids to maintain their curiosity. Most kids will be curious if we don't beat it out of them. And tell them the only thing worth learning is what the teacher says is worth learning, or the only time to learn something is when the bell rings and says, now you can go study history, now you can go study biology. But if we incorporate them, and all these build on each other, okay? If we incorporate them and create this fascination with our world and don't stifle their curiosity, they will absolutely, find what they like to do. They'll find their projects. They'll find their place. I remember well, our family, and this is not a homeschooling talk, but it's closely related. There's a lot of overlap. So we had 2 kids. And Daniel comes up, and we had a family of teachers. My mom was a teacher. Teresa's dad was a teacher. Her grandmother was a one-room schoolhouse teacher in 1915. She was a Laura Ingalls Wilder certificated 16-year-old, one-room schoolhouse teacher. And we're the first grandchild, on both sides of the family. We got these grandkids coming in, and we start doing this aberrant thing called, homeschooling. And again, it was not common back at that time. And boy, we took a lot, and were kind of judged for this thing, and so we felt under the pressure of it. So, I said, all right, we got to get Daniel reading. And he's 6 or so. So, okay, we got to get him reading. So I get some reading material. And how you start, B, what does B say? B. A, what does A say? A. What does T say? T. Come on, stay with. Yeah, I know. I'll keep you awake here. All right. B, A, T. All right, you got it. Now, say it faster. B, A, T. I said, okay, say it faster. But well, just say it faster. But he couldn't get it. He couldn't get it. All right. And I can say today, that I about ruined him, and it was bad. And I'm frustrated. He's crying. We're out there working, and we get along great, out on the farm. We're doing our work, but then I'm trying to incorporate this other. Anyway, it was not a good situation. So we just finally said, you know what? We're just going to back off, let it be. And we'll take the abuse from these parents and grandparents, and we'll just let it be. So he turns into 7, 8, 9. Now, we never had a TV. We didn't have a TV in our house growing up. We got married. We decided, we're not going to have a TV in our house either, so we don't have a TV. But boy, did we read. I mean, in the wintertime especially, we get done with dinner, and I would read for 3 hours. And they could sit for 3 hours while I read all the classics that I never got to read because I was in public school, and you just read a couple of chapters enough to match up. Sir Walter Scott wrote, this, and you can do your matching and pass the test, but you didn't know what Treasure Island was about. You didn't know what Swiss Family Robinson was about. You didn't know all this stuff. And so we read all these wonderful old, good old classics, and the kids would sit there for hours and hours and just absorb it and love it. About 10 years old, we joined the 4-H club, and because Daniel had his rabbits, so okay, we'll join the 4-H club, and he'll start with his rabbits. So he gets down there, and he gets elected, I don't know, some office or historian or something. And I can remember it like yesterday. He's 10 years old, not reading, okay? Not reading. 10 years old. Where would he be in a school situation? Okay? All right. So, but he can move 100 cows. He can set up a cross fence. He can drive a tractor. He can bale hay, but that's not important because society says, okay. So I can remember like yesterday, we're driving home from the 4-H meeting from the back seat. He says, well, I guess if I'm going to be the historian, I better learn how to read. He's 10 years old, okay? And in 60 days, he went from 0 to 12th grade on his own by himself, okay? So the problem, a lot of this problem is we parents don't have enough faith in our kids. When they need to know something, they can figure it out. They'll learn something. We feel like we've got to beat this into you, And so give them freedom to pursue their interests, maintain a healthy world of curiosity and awe and mystery and imagination, and they will learn at their pace. Our daughter Rachel, early reader, she was like me, she was very verbal, and she started reading at 5, and she's a bookworm, okay? But people are different, and you got to give them freedom so that you can find out where this branch is bent. And they need to find out where their branch is bent. One of the problems with our youth today is that since they've never actually done anything practical and meaningful, they come into 16, 17, 18 years old, and they've never had the freedom to experiment broadly, to eclectically and comprehensively incorporate into their life meaningful tasks, because we've pushed them aside. Well, you're kids. Well, you're kids, and we publish reports about how kids are a liability. What kind of a culture views kids as a liability? Here's how much it costs to raise a kid. Man, kids are, what kind of a culture views its children as a liability instead of an asset? And one of the beauties of homesteading is there's a lot of opportunities for our kids to be assets. They can gather eggs, weed the green beans, snap peas, all sorts of cool stuff. So letting them explore, is a big deal. Number four, create investment opportunities. Create investment opportunities. So what this is about is creating long-term commitments, personal ownership, so that they grow up saying the word ours and we, and not mine and my. One of the most important things I know that Dad did for me was the day he found out that I wanted to take the farm full time, he quit investing in it. So if a piece blew off the barn roof, I paid for it. Guess how attentive I am to a flapping piece of roofing after that? If we needed a new tractor, I bought it. Okay? Now, he was dumb like a fox. That meant nothing accrued to his estate. So that was before the large, estate exemption in taxes that we have now. But he was preparing for that. But this idea of letting them invest. I know so many farmers, especially, that won't let a 20-year-old even buy a tractor tire. And as if they're going to take it to, paradise with them. No, if we want the kids to appreciate the costs and care for infrastructure, we must change ownership physically in order for it to change emotionally. We've got to change the physical aspect of it, who owns this, so that we can get that whole emotional part done. This ultimately settles the stewardship question. I know many of you here, you're maybe looking at homesteading, you've bought your place, you're just freshly into it, and many of you are viewing this, especially if you come at midlife, which is when many people come to this, because at midlife you finally get tired of your early life, and you start feeling that your life is starting to run out. And you're starting to have concerns about these, 11, 12, 13-year-old screen addicts that whine and feel entitled and say they're victims, and can't even get them to fold their clothes and put them away, get their clothes in the dirty clothes, and you start to say, whoa, we got to change our paradigm here. We've got to change our lifestyle, and then the next thing that comes up, you start reading things, and you say, well, this is time to make a family legacy. A family legacy, right? And so allowing those kids to invest in that legacy is a big deal. Number five, Number 5, encourage a separate child business. Encourage a separate child business. This is a big one. I'm not talking about mom and dad raise goats, and those 3 goats right there are Amy's. She's 8 years old. I'm saying a totally separate child business. I know that for me, the one of those single big, looking back, a lot of times things in your childhood, you don't realize how significant they are until you get older, right? So looking back now, I realize how important my first laying hen project was when I was 10 years old. Our family at that time didn't have chickens. We didn't have laying hens, but I had a great uncle that was a great big chicken farmer in Indiana, and I loved going to his place. And I said, I want to get chickens like Uncle Omer. And so from Sears and Roebuck, I got 50 heavy breed special as hatched. Yeah, I know, right. 32 roosters and 18 pullets. That's as hatched. You got to watch these hatcheries, man. I'll tell you what. This as hatched business. Has anybody ever gotten as hatched and gotten more pullets than roosters? Ever? No, it doesn't happen. Anyway. But anyway, I got these chickens and started them out in a little basement shop in a cardboard box, and gradually morphed into more chickens. And by the time I was a mid-teenager, I had 300 layers and quite a business. I was supplying 2 schools, 3 restaurants, numerous individual families, and that was critical. But the thing was, Dad didn't have chickens. So if somebody wanted to come and ask questions about chickens, they came to me. I was the chicken expert, okay? And I'm realizing now how important that was. So for our own kids, Daniel started his rabbits when he was 8. We didn't have rabbits. I didn't have rabbits. I didn't know anything about rabbits, okay? But we had a couple friends at church that were moving from the country to the city, and the place they were moving to wouldn't let them bring their 3 pet rabbits. And so they were looking for a home for them. Daniel said, hey, this would be cool. And so he got these 2 does and a buck and started his rabbit business when he was 8. And by the time he's 15, he's got, almost 100 does, and it's a serious, serious concern. But again, when people came and wanted to see Daniel's rabbits, I didn't take them out to see Daniel's rabbits. I went to find him and said, go look at the rabbits. Our daughter started, girls are always a little ahead of boys, and so she started a baking business, making zucchini bread and pound cake. And she'd make these things, take them. Ladies would come and buy these, and boy, you know what it did to a 8-year-old girl to have these garden club blue hair, sophisticated ladies coming. Oh, you're the girl that made the pound cake I served at my garden club last week. Oh, the ladies just loved it. And all this stuff. You know what that does to an 8-year-old's self-esteem, self-worth? That's powerful stuff. One of the reasons that we've got such a fentanyl problem and a drug problem in this country is because kids weren't told at 8 that their pound cake was great. Okay? You get an 8-year-old fussed over by all the adults in the community and told that their pound cake is the best they've ever had, and suddenly those kids aren't interested in buying drugs on the street corner and dosing up with fentanyl. Are you with me? Our drug problem is not the bad Mexicans or the bad Chinese or all this stuff. Our problem is us as a culture. We have not created a habitat that germinates self-worth in our young people. Now, this business that they're going to have is their business. It's not your business. Their business. You know what? They're going to earn some money, and they're going to blow it. They're going to see something they're going to talk to a little friend, they're going to hear about something, and oh, some bright, shiny object, I've just got to have that. You're going to say, you know, that is a stupid way to spend money. Zip it. Zip it. It's their money. It's their money. And if they want to blow it on a bright, shiny object that's stupid, that won't satisfy, and they blow their money on something that's foolish, and in 2 days, they're tired of it, and they say, boy, that was a stupid way to spend money. Wouldn't you rather them learn that at 10 years old than at 30? So thrift and perseverance in the face of things. You know, our little granddaughter, Lauren, she's now, 15, but when she was about 6, so she's a little blonde, you know, and her 2 older brothers, so our grandchildren have had their duck businesses and lamb businesses, and, you know, we don't raise ducks, we don't raise lambs. Well, Lauren was so young, you know, but not to be outdone by these 2 older brothers. I can remember like yesterday, we weren't told anything about this. She went out, and one day she knew we were having a bunch of customers there at the farm, so she went out on her own and picked a nice big bouquet of wildflowers just out in the field. So she walked into the sales building, and there, you know, people milling about. She walks up to this, you know, man standing there. She said, I picked these flowers, and I'm selling them for $1. And now, we didn't know anything about this. I mean, she's like 5, and she figures this out. You know, she's going to have this business plan. So she comes in, and I'm selling for $1, and I'm sure your wife would like some flowers. We're all sitting here watching her move, you know, in action. She didn't even take a breath after saying, your wife might like flowers. She already had plan B. But if you don't have a wife, I'm sure you know a lady that would like some flowers, you know. I mean, it was, you know, you don't say no to me, you know. And that early thing is really important. One of the reasons that I think that this is so critical, the age is a critical thing. We think that the golden age for this is between 8 and 11. Here's why. Before 8, now Lauren was an exception, but she's my granddaughter, so she's special. But anyway, most kids don't really get money until they're 8. You know, a 6-year-old often would rather have 2 quarters than a dollar bill because it looks like more. You know, it's shiny, they clink together, you know, you can feel it in your pocket. Dollar bill's just a piece of paper, you know. And so at about 8, kids really get, you can actually talk about profit and loss and set up some accounting and you know, and run some money, run some financials. So that's, you know, that's the time to start. After 11, they start getting self-aware. You wouldn't find a 12-year-old going up to a guy like that and having a sales spiel like Lauren did at 5. 5-year-old, you know, it's all imagination, fantasy, you know, everything's cool. 11, you become a little bit self-conscious, right? And you're starting to be concerned about what people think about me and how I dress and how I look, and how I part my hair. And, you know, there's all this personal stuff going on after about 11. So this is we believe, a very narrow window, somewhere between 8 and 11, to really leverage that childhood charm and fantasy and imagination before they become callous with cynicism and contempt as teenagers. Okay? There's that beautiful spot. So, you know, we're all into that. Number six. Maintain humor. Maintain humor. Don't take yourself too seriously. Kick back and enjoy the work and the business. Had a friend that had a farm, and their city cousins would come out to visit, and they raised these hogs. Had a hog pen, and so they made a kind of a standing platform kind of on the fence, and they'd go out in the woods and cut saplings, 10, 12 feet long, narrow little saplings that went up, and they'd go to the corn crib and get ears of corn with some baler twine. I mean, on a farm, baler twine in a 5-gallon bucket. I mean, that just about runs the world, right? And duct tape. Anyway, baler twine tied on the end of this 10, 12-foot pole, tie the ear of corn on it, and they stand on this platform at the hog pen, and they hang that over the pig pen, and these hogs would come up, they'd see that ear of corn standing there, and they'd how pig would come up, and they'd kind of dangle this, like, this is called hog fishing. And they dangle this pole over, with the ear of corn on it. The hog come over, grab that ear of corn, and pig, and I got a big one, and everybody went hog fishing. Okay, this is important stuff. Okay, we've got to maintain a place to be able to laugh often and hard. We've got to be able to laugh at their inefficiency. Boy, that's hard. Man, you're trying to get done. I'm trying to get the dishes done. I'm trying, they're sitting there, taking suds and making suds mustaches. It's hard to laugh and enjoy that with them, but that's what we got to do, all right? Maintain that humor. Enjoy that childhood, just fascination, curiosity, joy of doing the work. We adults, as we get older, we've got schedules to keep. We got, I got to get this done. We're blah blah blah, and we get so serious about everything, and it takes the joy out of it. So maintain that humor, whatever it takes. Laugh often, laugh hard, and their lack of skill is something to enjoy. Their lack of efficiency is something to enjoy. Number seven, pay the children. Oh boy, this gets really interesting. Pay the children. Now, here's the caveat. No allowances. I don't believe in allowances. I don't believe in somebody getting paid because they breathe. I mean, all this stuff, in Dagwood Bumstead and the comics, his kids are always coming, can you up my allowance? It just makes me cringe, okay? Nobody should get paid just because they exist. So I'm not a believer in allowances. Nobody owes you a living. Nobody owes you wages or salary. Remuneration should only be tied directly to performance. Okay? Now, what do you pay for? You pay for things that bring income into your homestead, into your business. And you can turn, now this is going to dovetail a little bit with, a separate child business. Let's take gathering eggs. I can't get my kids to really take care of that. I've got them in charge of the chickens, but I go out there, they got broken eggs, the nest boxes are filthy, the eggs are filthy. I went out there yesterday and the waterer was empty, the feeder was out, and how do and the kids whine, I don't want to, okay. Well, turn the egg gathering into a business. I'll tell you what, Junior, we'll pay you $6 a dozen for gathering eggs and having them clean enough for me to use in the kitchen. Okay? Now, if they're not clean enough for me to use, that one doesn't count. All right? So quality control is an important thing to learn. Just because we're paying for performance doesn't mean we just throw away all the standards. Okay? So I'm a big standards guy. We make the expectations really clear. Here's what we expect. Here's what we'll pay for, and turn it into a business. And let them buy the feed. Let them take care of things. Guess what? It won't take long before they're starting to think about, how do I get more eggs? How do I reduce my clean time? How do I make sure the eggs don't get broken? How do I make sure the chickens are healthy? All those things suddenly switch simply by changing it from an unpaid chore to a paid business. And this can be done early. Early. So if let them have their own garden. You know, if you've got a garden, it's fine to let them have. This is, you know, if they want their own, all right, here's your bed. I'll help you set it up. We'll help you make it. This will be your bed. And we'll buy the vegetables. Okay? Let me tell you, the money, and you know how well that's going to be taken. They're going to be out there every day. They're going to be counting the tomato blossoms. They're going to be counting the bees on the tomato blossoms. Right? They're going to be totally engaged and totally interested in it. Because that changed it from simply a chore to something that they can benefit from. That's the way you change the incentive. So you don't pay for regular chores. We make a great distinction in not paying for things that you do because you're part of the human race. We don't pay you for making your bed, for cleaning the toilet, for emptying your trash basket, for folding your clothes, putting your clothes away, putting your dirty clothes in the wastebasket. I mean, I don't know about you, but nobody gets paid to clean the toilet at our house. Okay? So I don't want you to go overboard on this. Listen to me in context. All right? Things that are required that everybody has to do just because you're part of being human, that shouldn't be paid for. We actually deal with it at our farm now with our stewardship and apprentice program. It's amazing as our culture has moved into this kind of mercenary thing, where you ask for some help on something. Let's do something. Well, what do you pay me for it? What do you pay me for it? No, we're collaborating here. You know, we're doing this project together. I'm not, you know, when I go out and take the mattock out into the field and chop multiflora rose and autumn olives and those kinds of things and spend an hour doing that, nobody pays me to do that. But if I don't do it, you end up having fields full of multiflora rose and autumn olive. Okay? So not everything in life is compensatable. And I think that making that distinction is really important to inculcate that this toilet doesn't clean itself. The clothes don't clean themselves. There are things that you do simply because you're a human or because it has to be done to make the whole function. All right. But if there can be things that can be broken off as separate enterprises that you can then reward and kind of turn into a business, it's a big deal. And you know, we were really proud of both of our kids and then, of course, you know, they're up 40 now, but when they each hit 20 years old, they each had $20,000 in the bank that did not come from an allowance. With their rabbit businesses and pound cakes and being paid for their enterprises, they had that in the bank. I'm sorry, at 19 years old, not 20. At 19 years old, they each had $20,000 in the bank, and that's been 20 years ago. Number 8. Praise, praise, praise. Number 8. Praise, praise, praise. This is a little bit of a rough one. I often don't make it through this. My dad was a journeyman pattern maker at Delco Remy, an automotive plant in Indiana, before World War II. Then World War II interrupted him, and he went to the war, flew airplanes in the Navy in World War II. And if you know what I'm sure they don't even have them anymore, pattern makers, but these were people who made their own tools, gouges and all sorts of things, and they would make the wooden molds to pour the car parts in. So imagine the intricacy of making a wooden mold that you could pour a carburetor cast in, all right? So this was meticulous work. I mean, we're talking calipers and micrometers, and it was pretty meticulous stuff. And so he was a master woodworker, carpenter. I mean, he could make anything. Then I came along, and I'm not. In fact, if you've read my stuff, you know that I still have not been able to figure out where people get tape measures with those little marks in between 1 inch. 1 inch is plenty close. Who needs half inch, quarter inch? Who needs any of that? And I hear people in construction, yeah, it's 8 3/4 minus a scotch. What? Inches plenty close. And so one day I don't know what, maybe 15 or so, and we had a sagging corral gate that was all busted up and needed to be rebuilt. So I went out on my own, got some boards, and I built this corral gate. Replace this corral gate, and I go down and I hang it and I get it all on there. And it's kind of a parallelogram. To me, 90 degrees, 87's fine. Who needs 90 degrees? 87 degrees, plenty close. So I hang this gate. Dad comes by, he sees this gate. He says, "Good job. Good job." Now, do you know how that must have vexed his righteous soul? To see that parallelogram swinging in the corral from that day on? I'm sure it just tore him up inside. But he understood what happens from a fussy parent. And I run into people, especially men, 50 years old and up, and they're still scared to build something and do something because they can hear that complaint in the back. First time you help wash dishes wash dishes, what's the first thing? "Thank you, this is wonderful." No, it's, "You missed something here." I could go out. You can go out as an 8-year-old and work with Dad in the shop, nailing and bend over some nails, and that's all that's talked about. Wasting nails, wasting boards. Breaking the spirit of your child is real easy. Child writes a story, brings it to mom and dad, they read it. You got 5 misspellings. That's not the first thing to say, folks. I know I'm getting really personal here, but that's what this is all about. This is about how do we create a habitat that is encouraging. And I'll give you this little piece of advice. If you don't know, I'll talk especially to dads here because I am one. If you don't know if you're a fussy dad, ask your wife. She knows. She knows. Okay? Are there fussy moms? Yeah, absolutely. There certainly are. But praise, praise, praise. Don't break that spirit of your child. I know it's not perfect. Children desperately want and need parental affirmation. I lost my dad when I was 31, so I'm now, 36, 35 years without, and I still miss not hearing affirmation. We never outgrow wanting to hear from our parents, "I'm proud of you." Never. So, parents, if this is speaking to your heart, we won't have an altar call here. It'll be okay. But if this is speaking to your heart and you got a little bit of retrofitting and remediation to do, go do it. Go do it. It'll change everything. Those kids still want to hear, "I'm proud of you." Because here's the thing, we do everything poorly first. You know, we're children and we're indomitable. I mean, we're reading fairy tales, we're imagining, we're building castles in the air, we're dreaming. But somewhere along from 3 years old to about 25, somewhere along that line, we learn that it's not okay to dream. I teach the Stockman Grass Farmer Business School with Steve Kenyon, and one of my introductory soliloquies is about giving you permission to dream, because you know we want to please our parents, then we want to please a teacher, and then we want to please the Sunday school teacher, then we want to please a principal, we want to please a guidance counselor, we want to please, an employer. And by the time we're 25, all that dreaming is beat out of us, because we've now learned the most important thing for me to do is to meet somebody else's expectations. And a lot of us, what we really need is to go back to 10 years old. What were your dreams at 10? What were my dreams at 10? And if we can really just let ourselves go back to our 10-year-old dreams, that's probably who we are at our essence. You want to know what you ought to be doing? Do what you dreamed about doing at 10. That'll probably carry you for the rest of your life. And the truth is that we don't do everything well first. You know, think about it. You got a Thanksgiving family shindig, Thanksgiving. Everybody's all gathered around here, and the latest little child, little Alice May. All right, she's 9, 10 months old. All the adults are chit-chatting and all this, and little Alice May, she's playing on the floor in her diapers, and she comes over to the chair, a leg of a chair, leg of a chair. And she, gets a hold of it, and she kind of, gets herself up, and she's standing there, holding on to that chair leg, wobbling, and probably her mom sees her first. Look, what was she, Alice May? What? All right. What is it? Alice May. Okay, all right. I make up a new one all the time. I never remember what I got. Okay, so Alice May, suddenly mom says, look, she's standing. This is the first time she's ever stood up. Suddenly, all the adults say, look at Alice May, She suddenly looking up, and she's terrified. All the adults are looking at her, and she drops her grip, and she drops down on her diaper. What do all the adults do? Well, they get around her, say, well, Alice May, if you can't walk any better than that, just quit. Is that what they say? No, they say, here, put your hand up, let's try again. We come into adulthood, and our imagination and dream world is stigmatized because somebody back there said, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing. That's wrong. I don't know who spoke that into your ear, but it's wrong. The truth is, if it's worth doing poorly first. We don't walk well first. We don't talk well first. We don't write well first. We don't poop well. Well, I guess we do. We just don't know where to put it. We don't do any of that stuff well first. Okay? So if it's worth doing, it's worth doing poorly first. So praise, praise, praise. I can't emphasize that enough. I'm not talking about, not being disciplined when it's correctly, not applying, discipline when it's important. But when they're working with you and they're trying and they're trying to be creative, praise, praise, praise. Number nine, enjoy your vocation. Enjoy your vocation. Man, I meet so many farmers. My kids don't want anything to do with the farm. And you talk to them a minute, and in 5 minutes they've told you everything that's wrong in life. Those city people, they're a bunch of dummies. They won't let us do anything. EPA shut down our wetland. Their prices, Cargill, we ought to sue them for antitrust. And Tyson, and there's thistles in the field and these old noxious weeds, and I can't get, and in 5 minutes he makes me not want to farm. Listen, folks, kids are attracted to, they're infected by our enthusiasm. And if you can't get enthusiastic about your vocation, either figure out a way to make it something that you can be excited about or change vocations. But don't drag your kids into hating work and hating the homestead and hating the farm because you haven't been able to be creative enough and affirming enough to figure out how to make it an exciting, fun, imaginative, enthusiastic place to be. Okay? Kids are drawn to that. I run into people all the time, how do you get these young people, to work with you? We run this stewardship program. We take 11 a year, and then out of that comes our apprenticeship program. We have, almost 100 applicants a year to come and sweat and work, and I mean, we work. Okay, in fact, today I'm down here, they're home, they're baling hay. Okay, that's pretty cool. I'll come down and talk to you, and they're baling hay. But we only take 11, so we're only taking about 10% of the ones that apply. Well, I thought young people didn't want to farm. I thought they didn't like to work. Isn't that what I've read? These entitled, victim-oriented, woke, young, whippersnappers, rah, 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 Well, if that's the way you think about them, that's the kind you're going to be with. You're going to turn them into that. We have really high expectations. And we express those expectations. And more importantly, we spend a lot of time messaging a vision and a mission of healing the world, healing our customers, growing earthworms. Believe it or not, young people are still attracted. If they think, I can do this and grow more earthworms, that's cool, okay? Making a big picture mission statement. Our mission statement is to develop ecologically, emotionally, and economically enhancing agricultural prototypes and facilitate their duplication throughout the world. Okay? That clear vision, young people find attractive. And I'm convinced that if we actually had mission and vision and far-reaching healing messaging, rejuvenating messaging in our vocations, in our homesteads, and what we're doing, it would fire up the next generation to want to embrace it, immerse in it, and do it. The problem with our young people is not our young people. The problem is our old people who have not created enough attractive, magnetic mission to fire the imagination and attract our young people. That's our weak link. So let's look at what we're doing as a ministry, as a big picture. Finally, number 10, back off from personal domains. Back off from personal domains. Micromanagement doesn't instill excitement in anybody. Delegate and get out of the way. The number one motivator for stakeholders and for people to latch on to something, the number one motivator is to give them responsibility. If you're responsible, guess what? You take ownership. You don't take ownership of things you're not responsible for. So, for example, on our farm, as we have grown, we work with a lot of young people, a lot. And we don't have any hourly employees. They're all either salaried with clear expectations or they're performance-based. We pay you so much per saleable dozen eggs, so much per saleable broiler, so much for caretaking a group of cows. And all of that delegation creates immense responsibility. Are we vulnerable? Can they do? Yep, they can make big mistakes. And there have been some. but way fewer mistakes than if we just had people punching a time clock and they got a paycheck whether they did any good or not. See, when you get paid per dozen of eggs, guess what? You don't want to leave the egg mobile open so a fox can get in. Because if a fox goes in and kills 20 of the chickens, you just lost a paycheck. And that's how we've structured things. I'll go into it if we have Q&A on this, but I don't want to go into it a lot. I just want to point out that the number one motivator is creating autonomous responsibility. That's also the way to get way more decisions made, to decentralize the decision-making process. So guess what? We can make, 15 decisions simultaneously instead of having a top-down structure where only a couple decisions can be made per day because we've got to, it's all got to come from one place. Our rule is, and Daniel really came up with this, the guy in charge makes the decisions. The guy in charge makes the decisions. So if it's not in my sphere of responsibility, I don't make the decision about it. We find that extremely liberating. So from the farm's production standpoint, yeah, we've got our core businesses. We've got to get them covered. Yes, we're in the pastured livestock business. But beyond that, other things can hang around it. And if you're interested in something, right now we have people that are interested in growing mushrooms, tapping maple trees, growing honey, making cosmetics out of pig fat. Man, I can't even think of them all. But there's all this stuff going on so that we're basically a germination tray for new enterprises and complementary stackable enterprises to value add and add additional cornucopia options for our customers. So we become a one-stop shop. That really works. People love to be able to get a lot of different kinds of things. So most of our, duck eggs and lamb and different things, these have all come because of somebody who just took initiative and said, hey, I'd like to do this. And we say, go for it. And they get to decide where the ducks go. They get to decide which maple trees get tapped. And they're going to tap these this year, let those rest, and tap these next year. And I don't have to do anything. All I know is maple syrup shows up in the store and our customers love it. And that team player gets a nice side hustle and they get to make those decisions. And so this personal domain thing is a big deal to let the kids take and let our young people take their own their own enterprises, so they sink and fall on their own, they take responsibility on their own, and they're autonomous. And it's their money, and if they want to blow it, they can blow it. And that's the beautiful thing about this. So back off from personal domains. So those are kind of my 10 commandments for working with your kids so they will enjoy working with you. And we've got, 20 minutes here, and I'm glad to take questions or comments or arguments or whatever from the floor, and we'll open it up. Don't be bashful. We're all friends here, and we'll deal with whatever's on your mind. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you for being here. I was wondering if any of your books have your structure.
So the question is, does any of our books have our structure? So these 10 commandments are 10 chapters in family-friendly farming. My book, Family Friendly Farming, has all 10 of these as 10 separate chapters. Yeah. Another question. Yes, ma'am.
What's the balance between letting kids try different things and then expecting them to follow through?
Yeah, so what's the balance between letting kids try things and then expecting them to follow through? I think that balance is what they have laid down as expectations for themselves. So when they're ready to start something, sit down and say, so what's your objective here? What we want is for kids to actually develop what's it's called in military muscle memory, We want them to develop muscle memory so that they know what the end game is before they start. One of the problems is, it's a great question, one of the problems is with kids, they're ready to build castles without knowing what the foundation needs to be, all right? And so let's just run off and do this and not understand. So we want to start very, very early with them being able to articulate what's the end game. And goodness, everybody, I don't want to get all big political on you, but think about what happens in our nation right now at the federal government level, where we jump into things without actually an end game, right? You know, what's the end game of a $2 trillion bailout? You know, what's the end game of sending? Well, I said I wasn't going to get political, so. But you see what I'm saying? So I think that's what makes this balanced, is to make sure the child understands and can articulate the end game. Because it's so easy just to jump in and start things. I mean, we do that as adults, right? You know, we start things that we probably shouldn't start because they're interesting, and then we're halfway in, whoa, this, I bit off more than I can chew, right? And then we have to kind of back up. So counting the cost, I mean, this is a biblical principle, count the cost. So set up what the end game objective is, and that'll protect. And then as it gets difficult, then they know what their end game was, and they can decide whether they can accomplish it or not. But they know what the end game was. Okay? Great. Another question, anything on anybody's mind? Yes?
How do you praise less than optimal work while also finding the synthesis for respecting the child's domain, but helping them improve and amplify on their goals?
Absolutely. So how do you praise less than unacceptable work? And yet open the door for them. Okay. So that's where the standards need to be clearly articulated. So if they're responsible for something that you're paying for, okay, gathering the eggs, all right, then those expectations have to be clearly, make them down. Listen, on our farm, we have, moving a chicken shelter. That seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Move the chicken shelter. Our standard operating procedure for moving a chicken shelter is 6 pages long. 6 pages explaining what moving a chicken shelter is. Now, I'm not saying you got to give a 6-page SOP for everything your 4-year-old does, but I am suggesting that your expectations need to be very, very clearly articulated so that they understand what deserves compensation and what doesn't. All right? And so let me give you an example of how. Now, this isn't for a 4-year-old. This is for one of our our young people that leaves us, and so we have a rental farm, for example, and they're going to run a rental farm as a subcontractor. Okay. So there's no guarantee of a salary, no guarantee of a dollar. It's all performance based. They say, well, I'll do 4,000 broilers. I'll run a Millennium feather net, 2 egg mobiles, herd of cows, 2 groups of pigs, and 1 batch of turkeys. Okay, and they build their package. All right. Well, we get to the end of the year, and a bunch of their chickens didn't make grade because they weren't heavy enough. They lost a bunch of chickens to a fox because they forgot to close up a egg mobile. One time, we had a hot spell, a couple days over 100 degrees, and had a bunch of great big broilers with this guy. And Daniel called him and said, "Look, it's gonna be 100 degrees tomorrow. Go out there at 2 o'clock and and spray some water on them. Get them up, get them moving, so they don't suffocate, get too hot." And he called 2 of our guys. One guy did it, one guy didn't. The guy that didn't lost 50 great big birds, and he just lost, $100 a paycheck because it didn't happen. All right, so we get to the end of the year, and guy comes up and says, "Man, this just doesn't work. I mean, you know, there's no money in this. This is crazy. Okay, bye-bye. Another guy comes, takes the same package the same year, next year, same package, same farm, same everything. He gets done, he says, man, I never knew there was so much money in farming. This is fantastic. 2 people, 1 year apart, same farm, same package, one terrible, one wonderful. What's the difference? Character. Character. One took care of business. One's too busy sitting in on the computer making spreadsheets of, you know, what could be done instead of doing what needed to be done. Okay? And so we see this all the time. So the balance, I think the way to create that balance is with very clear expectations so that the remuneration is consistent with the very clearly articulated expectation. And that tends to take care of that, because they know if it's been, as Daniel says, again, I quote him, says, the single best way to destroy a relationship is with unexpressed expectations. But I just figured, no. We're not mind readers, right? We're not mind readers. So we've got to explain what our expectations are. And that's where I think the tension comes more in not in balancing the unacceptable stuff versus encouragement. It comes, we normally start the ball rolling the wrong way by not taking the time to clearly articulate what are our expectations. Okay? Is there any other question? Anything else on anybody's mind? Yes?
Do you have any specific words of advice if you don't have a child who's young, like you're not starting an teenager career?
Okay, the question is to make sure I understand it. There's stuff in behind here. That you don't have children, but if you're starting with a teenager.
Yeah, so he's not young.
He's not young. Yeah, I mean, he's a teenager. Yeah, he's young, but not a little child. Okay, all these principles work. These are ageless. I mean, these work even if mom and dad are 70 and the kids are 50. Okay, now the problem is that that when they have not been applied, you have deficits. So you come into that 15, 16, 17-year-old time at deficits. All right, but I'll tell you what. We have seen, are there some young people that are whatever, unpassed? Yeah, I mean, they're just lost, okay? I get that. But for most, if they've got an ounce of savvy at all, they will respond to responsibility, to clear expectations, and to incentives that are directly tied to performance. So if you're wanting help with your produce operation, okay, so we're raising vegetables and selling them. Instead of hiring somebody by the hour, instead, pay them per pound of harvest. Okay? I'm convinced that almost every single job can be tied to a performance, can be retrofitted to a performance orientation. For example, our delivery driver, the guy that runs our delivery truck, okay, is not paid by the hour. He gets a salary, but then they also get a bonus based on poundage. Guess what? That means they want to grow the volume. They want to fill the truck. They want to look for new customers. They want to be nice to customers because they don't want to lose poundage. Okay? So every single thing that you're doing, think about how you can tease out a performance-based structure so that your team is not guaranteed, but their actual incentive is tied to performance. Is that fair? And almost everybody wakes up to that or steps up to that. Now there are people. The beautiful thing about this is there are people who, when they hear such a proposal, man, they head for the tall grass because they just want to punch a time clock. So this is the beautiful vetting system, because anybody who's willing to say, yeah, I'll sign up for an unguaranteed thing at these stipulations, and I'm going to make good on this. That's the kind of person you want, because that's a shared risk taker. I don't want to collaborate with anybody who doesn't share a risk with me. The problem with hourly wages is they don't share risk. They get paid whether they make me money or not, okay? And I don't want to work with somebody who gets paid whether they botch up or not. I want to work with somebody who's got risk on the line, just like I've got risk on the line. And then we both, as John Wayne would say, now we understand. Now we understand. And that self-vets. It self-vets you, the kind of people that have the confidence and savvy to say, yes, I'll do it without a guarantee. Does that make sense? Yeah, great. Anything else? Yes, way back there.
If you've got a child wanting to do something as complicated as, say, breeding rabbits, where do you step in and get involved versus letting them take the reins with the more complicated solution?
All right, the question is somebody wanting, if you got a child wanting to do something as complicated as breeding rabbits, where do you step in? Thanks for throwing me that nice little softball, since we've already been through that. So the only place that we stepped in was as a sounding board of just, as a mentor advisor and as a friendly banker. Okay? We can be a friendly banker and help, capitalize some things, expansion or whatever. But basically, it was nothing. Had to figure it out. Another thing that Daniel did, he got interested when he was a kid in tapping maple trees. So this is he was 10 and reading now. And so on his own, he found 2 maple sugar books, got them, read them, and then what we did was we contacted a metal fabricator and had a pan made up, all right? So that was what we contributed to it. And then he picked the trees to tap. He got the spot, all the stuff, tapped the trees. And then he got to thinking, he said, you know what? Instead of selling maple syrup for $100 a gallon, that gallon of maple syrup would coat $1,000 worth of donuts. And so instead of selling maple syrup for because he only got a couple gallons, he's tapping closed trees there. He made several $100s making glazed maple donuts. Okay, value adding. All right, and he came up with all that. We did not do anything. He found the recipes in the cookbooks. He and Rachel, they put it together. And so I think the level of creativity and problem solving in our kids is so far beyond what we can imagine that we don't have enough faith in our kids that they'll be creative enough and aggressive enough to figure it out. That's our problem, and we need to make that we call it a germination tray that allows them to germinate whatever seed and they'll figure out how to plant it, how to fertilize it, how to harvest it, how to keep it going. Great question. Yes?
So you help faith. You're the banker. Do you teach your kid to pay you back?
Absolutely. If we're the banker, they pay us back. Now, we might not charge interest. So, within the family, we're not into usury, okay? That's okay, all right? But yes, absolutely, they have to pay us back. It has to work, yeah. But, at no interest, they got some time. And, and as our kids got older and they had these bank accounts, there were a couple times when Teresa and I borrowed money from them. I mean, that was a great thing. I mean, we taught them that actually you earn money so you can take care of mom and dad when they get old, That's a good lesson to learn when you're a kid. So those are valuable things. Yeah. Yes?
Follow up to that,
Tithing. Yeah, so I was just wondering whether I should share this, but now you've opened that box. So I remember very well one time we're heading to church and backseat Daniel, he's sitting there and all of a sudden he says, "Man," he says, I gotta breed some more rabbits and sell some more rabbits because I don't have anything to put in the plate today. And And so, we didn't go into a bunch of hardcore teaching on this. I mean, he saw us, more is caught than taught. And so he had his jars of saving, God's work, tithing, whatever, and then personal fun. Did he buy some stupid things? Absolutely. But those were the three categories. And he kept them to his own. But isn't that a wonderful thing to, at that very young age, to learn the object, one of the objects, one of the threads of my work is to give away, and to realize that my diligence and my savvy in my work gives me the opportunity to help somebody else. And so that's another benefit of having your own business. It's not me giving an allowance or here, put this in the plate. It's totally different. Totally different. Here, you put this in. No, that doesn't do it. All right. But if you've earned it and it's your baby and you put it in the plate, that has a whole different meaning and a ramification for you. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Okay, the question is, so your girls have made, did you say this is sewing or leather, and it's not really saleable. You know what? Let them do it. Let them do it. If it doesn't sell, they'll learn real quick. Oh, this, and sometimes somebody will come along and whatever, just feel sorry for them out of the goodness of their heart, especially if they're real little, like, the little bouquet of flowers, buy it anyway. But generally, I mean, this is, man, you've got to learn what works and what doesn't work. And we protect our kids from failure. Man, we need to let our kids see slaughtering, butchering, death, failure, mildew, weeds. I mean, this is, life ain't always just a bunch of roses and and pretty skies. And so if they're doing some subpar work and they want to try to sell it, great. Let them try to sell it, and they'll learn. And if nobody buys it, I mean, we have that. We've had young people try it and it's subpar. Put it in the store. After a year and it doesn't sell, well, I guess this doesn't really work. And then they either get better at it or they do something else. Yeah, and they're honing that. Great question. Anything else? Okay, yeah. How did Daniel sell so many rabbits? He's the only game in town. Meat rabbits. He butchered them, yes. So they were dressed, tuxedo and all. Individuals, mainly restaurants, but a lot of individuals. But here's the thing: I don't know what the market is for rabbit in Virginia. I'm sure it's small. Maybe the whole state only sells $3 or $4 million worth of rabbit a year. I mean, in the whole state, okay? But if you're the only one in the state doing it, or there's only a couple of you, that's plenty of room, all right? And especially when he started, most of the rabbits were being imported from China. And they were actually not rabbits. They were cats and dogs and things like that. So that's why in China, when you sell rabbit, they have to leave the ears on to prove that it's actually a rabbit, not a dog or a cat. Okay? So that was his competition, Chinese imports. And it didn't take long for chefs that wanted to use rabbit to find him and use his rabbits. So it's a small market, it's a niche market. But listen, if you're the only, if you're the good one or the special one, you don't have to do a lot to make it work. Great. Okay. Great to visit with you. Enjoy the evening and the music. And it's just been a real special privilege to visit with you. Thank you.